Om. 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 Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmaya Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tadpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vedya Dravindam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Maridvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, Nina, I don't know whether you know this text, do you?
Yeah, we did this one.
Okay. But just to review, this is a capstone text. This is for not the beginning, not the intermediate yogis. This removes the last final attachment, mumukshu, the seeker after liberation. If we take up these practices too soon, I like what you said, Stephen, before class, doing shadow work. Wasn't that the term you used?
Yeah.
Tell us what shadow work is.
It's going into your deep conditioning, and the deepest part of it would be called trauma that affects your being and basically what you're expressing most of the time and don't know it.
Yeah. So if you've done what a lot of the people say today is a spiritual bypass, you've just gone to try to get high and not really done this deep work of, I've used the term, the unloading of the unconscious. Then you can read a text like this and it becomes a rationalization for bad behavior. Because the scripture says, in the end, there's no rules for the Stitha Prajna, the person of steady wisdom. They are the hand of God in action. They're out of control. And it's true. But if you haven't done the shadow work, then you're likely to exhibit behavior that hurts other people. Did I say that clearly from your understanding?
See that with a lot of teachers today. And
yeah. That's why frequently, even after someone is rooted in the self, frequently their gurus will say, no, you're not ready to teach yet. you got some unloading to do. And I always think of Ramana Maharshi. So his realization was at age 16. And he leaves school, leaves his family, goes to Tiruvannamalai. And then he spent 11 years in silence. And in some of the biographies, they call it seeming tapas, burning out those impurities. So, I never say somebody's not welcome to study a text. It's always there. You're going to find it anyway. But we need to have enough humility to know whether or not we still have kleshas. Any thoughts on this? Take it with a grain of salt. Where are we in the text now?
Chapter 11, number 5.
Chapter 11, number 5. Will you help us out, please?
Yeah. Page 176. Chintaya jayate dukkham Nyanyattheti nishchayi Taya hina sukhi shanta Sarvatra galita spriha. He who has understood with certitude that it is anxiety and nothing else that brings sorrow in the world, becomes free from it and is happy and peaceful everywhere with his desires melted away.
Yes. So the foolish person thinks, I'm unhappy because I'm not getting what I want. I'm unhappy because the world is worrisome. The yogi understands, I'm unhappy because I'm wanting. I'm unhappy because I'm worrying. So it always goes back to the texture of our own mind. And the mind itself is not inherently evil or bad. Krishna says something very interesting in Gita. It says the mind is the enemy of the person in ignorance. Oh, my terrible mind. The mind is the friend of the person of knowledge. Mind itself is just a mind. All right, any thoughts on this? Next one.
Naham deho na me deho bodho hamiti nishchayi kaivalyam iva samprapto na smaratya kritam. I am not the body, nor is the body mine. I am pure intelligence. He who has understood this with certitude does no longer remember what he has done or what he has not done, as if he has attained the state of aloneness, kaivalya.
Yes. So kaivalya, this aloneness, does not necessarily mean that I'm alone up in a cave in the Himalayas. The deepest meaning of kaivalya, there's only one of us here. But the mark of the woman of steady wisdom is she has let go of the past. No regret. no resentment. Now, here's an important point. Of course, we cannot change the past. So many teachers and teachings, just like this one, talk about being in the present. No thought for the past, no worries for the future. It's a wonderful teaching. Why can't I do it, though? Why can't I do it? Karmically, if we've hurt or harmed people, those become a psychological burden. And we carry around guilt and shame. And a very powerful practice is to make a list of all persons we have harmed. Go back as far as you can. And become willing to make amends to them all. And with this list, you start with the important ones. You go to that person, you write them a letter, you make a phone call, you send them an email. Way back and so, I said such and such that hurt and harmed you. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. And I will endeavor not to do that again. It's devastating to the ego. But if you have resistance to it, guess who's identified? Oh, I'm a great big monkey yogi, but my pride won't let me do that. Udha. Now, any of you remember Est? You might remember Est. You're old enough. Did you do the Est
I
training?
did not do it, but I remember first.
I did the Est training.
Oh, okay.
Erhard's seminar training.
Really.
What?
Where it all started.
Yeah. We used to call the people who did Est holes in those days. Yeah. But Werner had a teaching around breaking agreements or hurting or harming people. He used to use the word perpetration. And we don't mean perpetration like a crime. It's a psychological term. When I've said I'm going to do something and I don't do it, when I break an agreement, when I hurt or harm someone, when I do something that's dishonest or unethical, I'm perpetrating on another person, is what Werner used to say. And one of the things he discovered, if we've perpetrated on another person, we will resent them. You'd think they would resent us, and sometimes they do. But what Werner discovered is that if we've wronged another person, we will justify our bad behavior by making them wrong and resenting them. And we will continue to perpetrate against them until we acknowledge it and clean it up. I have found it very true. So it can be something as simple as you make a phone date with someone that you're going to call them at such and such a time. and you forget. How many of us, oh my God, I should have called them. And it gets harder and harder to call them and say, I screwed up. Who's had that experience? It's fascinating to see how the mind does that. So this is another reason why cleaning up the past as best as we can is so incredibly important. Because we're all taught to stay in the now. Here, Ashtavakra is saying, a person of steady wisdom has forgotten the past. He's not there. She's not there. But you will be in the past if you've perpetrated against other people, if you've hurt or harmed them. And for example, especially in romance, usually in a breakup, it's two people involved. But how many of us focus on what they've done to me? I'm the victim. They've done it to me. Anybody gone down that road before? Now, we can't change other people, but what I can do, even if it was a reaction to their bad behavior, you cheated on me and I got really mad and I said some really cruel things. What you can do, even if it's years later, when we were having trouble, I said and did things that were very hurtful. I was wrong and I'm sorry. And then you can let it go. You cleaned up your side of the street. It's a very powerful tool. Very powerful tool. And if you find yourself having resistance to it, why? I'll tell you why. Because it's humiliating. And that's only my pride. That's only my identification with a false sense of self. And it's practices like this, where the rubber hits the road, where I really show my own intention to myself. Am I willing to renounce a personal sense of self? And then, of course, no concern about the future when I have a deep, intuitive understanding that Ishvara, or the goddess, Tripura, is running everything. And I have no worries. I'm safe. It's all going to be okay.
Can I share a story about pride, Jim?
Please.
So my recent travels, we were in this ashram in Colorado, which had like a Devi temple. And, I would see people prostrating down and bowing down to the idol. And my conditioning is such that I never really enjoyed doing that, just bowing down. And I noticed that conditioning was coming up again. And I was like, oh, I don't want to bow down. And, it's when I was growing up, I used to just look down on I identified as an atheist. And so like all of that just kept coming up and I was noticing it, but I did it anyway and I bowed down. And then a few days later, we went to Boulder and we happened to be staying in this Zen kind of Zen center. And in the morning meditations, I went there for a couple of times. And I was excited because I was like, okay, this is a Zen center, no rituals. Not, at least that was my understanding. And it's just pure meditation. So I go in there in the morning and we meditate for like, 40 minutes, and there's a walking meditation and there's a sitting meditation. And at the end of it, there was like 10 minutes of bowing down. Like I had to bow down like 50 times. And I had to do it because it was a big group and everyone is, fully in it. And I just found myself laughing. And yeah. And so in those 2 days, I bowed down maybe 100 times.
That's
Yeah.
great.
And is the reaction now gone?
Yeah, I mean, I just found it hilarious, like
Okay.
while I was bowing down, that this is not ending.
Right.
And it just kept happening.
For eternity. Right? I will be bowing down for eternity.
Yeah.
Well, but you see, what is a pranam? What is a prostration? It is a physical gesture of the humility of the ego. It's to be soft, to be little.
Mhm.
There's an Adyashanti story that I love. There was this, again, woman who comes up, she's a Westerner, and says, "May I bow down and touch your feet?" And he thought for a moment. He says, "All right." So big deal for her. She touches his feet, then she stands up. So what do you think Adyashanti did?
He bowed down.
He bowed down to her. Ah! She totally freaked out,
But, yeah.
No, the yogi can bow to anyone and anything. Everyone and everything is God. Again, one of my favorite stories. There's two Westerners talking. One of them was traveling a lot with the Dalai Lama. The other one says, "Well, what's he like to be around?" And the guy says, "He's always the smallest person in the room. No pride, no agenda, no shtick to run." Those of us who are Westerners, you may know the song Simple Gifts. Do you know it, Stephen?
No.
'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free.
Yeah.
So let's see. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. Right there. To turn will be our delight. Turning is English word for the Greek metanoia, which means turn around, go the other way, which is usually translated as repentance. Fabulous song spiritually. But it's all about being simple, not being big. All right. Enough on that topic. Unless anybody else has anything they want to add. Wonderful story. Yeah. I'll pronounce to you anytime. I'll cook for you too. Next verse.
Abrahmastam Abrahmastamba Paryantam Ahameveti Nishchayi Nirvikalpa Shuchi Shanta Prapta Vinirvritihi. I am indeed in everything, from the Creator down to a tuft of grass. He who has understood this with certitude becomes free from all thought oscillations, pure and serene. He withdraws from what is attained and what is not attained.
Yes. Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, my favorite mantra. my Mahavakya from Chandogya. All this is verily Brahman. To see God in everything and everyone. Osho story. So when the Oregon ranch farm, whatever they called it, broke up, and I guess he was heading across country and he was going to leave the US in the Carolinas, I think it was. Wasn't that right?
Yeah.
And he got arrested and thrown in jail. And he was perfectly comfortable. And I guess he was tuning up the convicts there in the prison. And seeing God everywhere. Nothing is too little or too low. There's a story about Swami Tapovanam, where he's walking in the Himalayas and he's set upon by robbers. They give us your money. I don't have any money on my big shoe. By the way, I'm hungry. Do you have any food? Oh, okay. He goes and eats with the robbers and they share a meal with him. All right, next verse.
Nanascharayam idam vishvam na kinchit iti nishchay nirvasana sphutir matro na kinchideva shamyati. He who has understood with certitude that this manifold and marvelous universe is nothing, unreal, becomes desireless, pure intelligence. He finds peace as if nothing exists.
And the word here is nirvasana, which he's translating as desireless, I assume, right?
Free from desire. Yep.
Yeah. But it's subtler than that. Shankara says it's the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that's considered liberation by the wise. A vasana is a subset of sanskara. Sanskara is an impression. Do you know that that's a table? That you know that's a table is an impression. You were taught that. A newborn doesn't know it's a table. But a vasana is an impression left in the unconscious as the result of previous egoistic actions and experiences. It has elements of I-ness and minus, qualities of pleasure and misery. And a vasana has two powers: veiling power, vritti or avarana shakti, and projecting power, vikshepa shakti. So how does it operate? How do I know if my mind is covered by vasana? I have the non-apprehension of myself at that moment as Brahman. And then immediately, Jiva Bhavana. I think I'm a person. I think I'm an individual. From that stems all the craziness. So what need be done is to annihilate all the vasanas. So I have stita prajna, which means steady wisdom. How do I know I need to continue to do practice? If I'm identified. If I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. Boss, Stop. Remember who you are. Everything the ego posits after the thought, I'm a person, I'm the body, or the body plus personality, it's all based in ignorance. It's not going to get you anything. Stop. Tune up the mind. Remember who you are. Then let the body do as it will. And Shankara always says, if the mind extroverts into the sense objects, meaning I seriously think, I want people, places, things, and conditions, there should be no talk of liberation. Do not confuse paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge, with aparoksha jnana, direct experience, which doesn't mean I've had a meditation in some peak experience. It means as I'm moving through the world, I am no longer afflicted by desire. We shouldn't fool ourselves. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
That's the end of the chapter.
Okay, next one.
Chapter 12, How to Abide in the Self.
Oh, that works.
Janaka uvacha kaya kritya saha purvam tato vagvista rasaha atha chinta sahastam atha chinta sahastasmad evame va hamastitaha. Janaka said, I became intolerant first of physical action,
Of what?
of physical action,
Okay.
then of extensive speech, and then of thought. Thus do I therefore abide in myself.
So every being is impelled helplessly into action by the force of prakriti, nature. What can restraint do? But when we've done our tapas, we've done our karma yoga, when I've internalized deeply that karma is the cause of my misery, what I give up is ego prompted activity. If I get this job, then I'll be happy. Oh, if I get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, then I'll be happy. If I get rid of the husband or the boyfriend or the girlfriend, then I'll be happy. So at first, the yogi abandons ego-prompted activity. You do your duty. Never does the scriptures imply that we cease doing our niyatam karmas, our duties in the world. So first he gave up the action, and the second was speech. Is that right?
Extensive speech.
So speech is one of the links between the body and the mind. So it is of great value to practice maunam. Maunam means silence. Take a day of the week and go the whole day in silence. If you can't do that, you can do it for a morning. Those of us who did the retreat, how many years ago is it now? 5 or 6?
6 years.
6.
Yeah. If you remember, the instruction was silence all morning until, what was it, breakfast? I think we did. Lunch, something like that. Very important. Then when we are speaking, I'm very keen on the Buddhist teaching on right speech. Is it kind? Is it truthful? Is it necessary? Is it timely? I may have not got the right order. I got a friend who says, I always tell the truth. I was behind this lady in the supermarket and in line, and I just couldn't help myself. I had to say, you're really fat. It was the truth. Well, did you notice whether or not she had a nice colored scarf? Or whether her perfume was nice? It's not the only truth. Was it kind? And was it necessary? Or was it timely? Sometimes restraint of tongue, pen, and send button can be incredible. There's another dimension of this, most specifically for young people, and that's social media. I have lots of young people friends who just get angry and outraged on social media, saying all sorts of things. Do you do that? I would recommend that you don't. This is conservation of speech. Nothing wrong with speech. But take your speech seriously. And then finally, the third one was thought, right?
Yes.
And then finally, this is such an important discipline. Remember, the quality of our thinking will create our experience of the world because they're not different. Ramana Maharshi's classic metaphor of the movie projector. The self is like the lamp and the projector. My mind is like the film. What I see of the world is what's on the screen. So if my thoughts are negative, dwelling in the past, full of resentment and regret and fear and anger, those are the images on my interior film. Don't be surprised if your life looks like that. We think external events create my mind states. Did that make sense? It's the other way around. My habituated mind states, and back to your comments around shadow work, many of which are unconscious, create my view of the world. Two different people can live in the same world, Oh, it's scary out there. Make sure you never cross the street without a friend, yada, 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 yada. Another person can be in the same city, same neighborhood, and is always running into people and they're talking about God. So we have to be mindful of the content of our minds.
So Jim, sometimes I'll notice, like I can just see that there's like a filter, a little bit of negativity. It's not a big thing, but just noticing, like getting a little annoyed at something. So sometimes it's so subtle, I can't even really catch the thoughts. I just notice as best I can. Is that,
And what I would recommend, act contrary to it,
oh, I do. I don't act on it. It's more,
but
it's,
also the thinking,
yes,
also the thinking.
right, like prayer or.
Yes. So, my newest slogan that I've come up with, the awareness of suffering is an invitation to prayer.
And actually, the tongue one works amazingly well.
Exactly.
It cleans out that
Yeah.
fog or whatever it is.
Don't be sloppy. Don't put up with annoyance.
Yeah.
Don't put up with impatience.
Mhm.
I mean, I'll tell you the one I'm working on. My habit of looking at my watch.
Mhm.
It's so little, but it's just a subtle impatience.
Mhm.
And what I'm doing now, when the desire to look at my watch, I just don't feed it.
Mhm.
It's less than it used to be. What's left underneath is peace. And then in the end, quit believing the mind altogether. I cannot think a real thought. I not only don't believe any of my thoughts, but I don't believe any of yours. So what you think, I was talking with someone earlier and they were talking about, well, this person's abusive. Nobody can say anything that makes me feel anything. Nobody has that power. Nobody. Nobody has the power to make me feel anything. Now, someone takes out a stick and starts beating you, that's abuse. But not what they say. I choose to personalize. So you can start with this viewpoint. We see that person, like so many of us in this world, is in spiritual ignorance. And as a result of that, they do and say things rooted in fear. Fear is usually the chief activator of all our kleshas. Have you been afraid? Yeah, I've been afraid. Now you know why they do what they do. So we don't respond with anger or get our triggered or our buttons pushed. Intending the well-being of the other. If, for example, they told you that they have an illness, you wouldn't hate them because they had cancer. But if they go blah, 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 and what they're saying is the result of their spiritual ignorance, why hate them for it? It's all it is. Very good verse. 3 layers of practice we can do. Any thoughts on this? How about you folks out in Zoom land? Huh?
You spoke the first one about silence being such a prominent thing to have in part of your life, and the three to me go together, and that
Yeah.
voice is a silent, not speaking, but the mind, I can sit in not talking with the mind's doing its thing. It's even worse than me saying things. So I kind of incorporate both of them as silence if I'm going to be that.
Yeah, very good. All right, next verse.
प्रीत्य भावेन शब्दादे दृश्यत्वेन चात्मनः विषेक विषेक्तैकाग्र हृदय एवमेवाहम् आस्थितः. Having no satisfaction, attachment in sound and the other sense objects, and the self being no object of perception, I have my mind freed from distractions and rendered single-pointed. Thus do I therefore abide in myself.
Yes. So this is a reference to a very deep part of the teaching. And it has to do with the yogic understanding of what we call the tanmatras. The tanmatras are the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and akasha, space. I had a lot of trouble with this in my early sadhana because, earth is not an element. Helium is an element. Hydrogen is an element. They just didn't know about physics and chemistry. And it was actually Yoga Vasishta where I got the connection. It has to do with the deep yogic understanding of perception. The way I like to explain it is this. Some of you have heard me go through this before. So here we are in the waking state, and you can see the table. Table is made of rosewood. Rosewood is largely cellulose. Cellulose is carbon. What's the table made of? The element is carbon. Now, let's say last night you had a dream that you were here in class. And in your dream, you were sitting here in my living room and you saw my table in the dream. What was the table of your dream made of? Well, in yoga, we have what's called the Pancha Karana. Who remembers what that is?
The fivefold cause of resolve.
Both Anatmabodha and Vivekachudamani. The 5-fold division and subsequent recombination of the subtle elements. Swamiji has that little Pac-Man chart, which, But what it means is you got the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. And what are they? Earth, smell; air, touch; fire, sight; water, taste; space, sound. At the subtlest level, they're all just separate. But you get a little bit of grossification down to the dream state, and they divide and recombine. So you see the table of the dream, and it's a combination of those 5 sense perceptions. And what yoga says, this is no different. It's just a lower vibration. That's all. Why should I be concerned by the dream-like appearances of things heard, seen, tasted, touched, and smelled? all they are is the tanmatras recombined. There's nothing substantial here except Brahman. Only the fool gets upset. Because in ignorance, I think the world is solid and concrete and separate from consciousness. So the yogi perceives through the senses just like anybody else, but is not fooled by them. So the 5-year-old says, "Mummy, mummy, mummy, let's get in the car. There's a rainbow. Let's go get the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow." Because she thinks the rainbow is solid and real and lands at a specific point in the neighborhood. Seen, but not real. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real. The Jagat, the phenomenal world, is Mithya, an illusion. But the more I believe in its solidness, the more real it appears to me. It's only a habit of belief. In truth, it's just a very long, very vivid dream. Next verse.
Samadhyasadi vikshiptau vyavahara samadhaye evam vilokya niyama evamevaham asthitah. An effort has to be made for samadhi, for concentration, only when there is distraction of the mind due to one's own superimpositions. Seeing this to be the rule, thus do I therefore abide in myself.
So the woman of steady wisdom practices what we call sahaja samadhi, natural or continuous samadhi, which is a higher state than nirvikalpa samadhi. The scriptures extol nirvikalpa samadhi, near or nis, without, vikalpa, a movement or a perturbation, sama, equality, the mind, absolute quiescence of mind with no perturbations. Swamiji used to say, when the last thought is thoughted before the next thought starts thoughting. Nirvikalpa Samadhi, it is extolled in Viveka Chudamani, is a necessary stage in our sadhana. Anytime the mind is free from mentation, deliberation, thoughting, there's only just the light of pure awareness. If the attentive faculty is turned within and you notice it, what are you going to notice? There's no person there. What is my nature? Chidaka. Now, that's not the end point, because the mind returns We now have to make sure we see the self in and through all the objects of the world. So the flow of thought, the perception of objects, does not rob me of my knowledge. For the jnani, the presence of thought is not problematic. So the import of the verse, if you know who you are, Aham Brahmasmi, you know what this world is, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. You know, how did the objects come about? What are they? Sankalpena, by means of imagination. Then there's no inside, no outside. The jnani may be seen to meditate, does not add to her knowledge. You see the self, you see the self. She may do it because it's the highest form of worldly pleasure, but it's nothing she has to do. Again, Swami Tapovana, man of the deepest realization, walks all the way from Rishikesh to Shara, the temple, which is now in Pakistan. How far would that distance be? Hundreds of miles, if not 1,000, right?
1,000 kilometers, yeah.
Yeah. And what did he do when he got there? Hung out with the priests and spent most of his time chanting praises to the mother. It's not that he was trying to get anything. It was just his idea of a good time. Keeps him out of the bars at night. It's fun for him. Blissed out because of it. It was his way to revel. Any thoughts on this? I hear a thought from you, Stephen.
Later.
Okay. Chances are, if it's your thought, someone else is having it too. Just remember that.
If just listening to you. So the senses themselves, you said that in a subtle level, they're very separate. But that is what creates the imagination.
Or maybe the imagination creates the senses. I'm not sure how you do it. Yeah.
They are the things that make us feel solidity and self.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right, next verse. Looked at my watch.
Heyopadeya viharo. Heyopadeya vihara. Adevam harsha vishadayoho. Abhavadhya brahmane. Evame vahamastitaha. Finding nothing as acceptable and nothing as rejectable, and having neither joy nor sorrow, O Brahman, thus do I, therefore, now abide in myself.
Yes. So for the Sthita Prajna, the person of steady wisdom, they are comfortable anywhere. from the standpoint of the body, it will be placed in the environment due to its product of karma. Have a student last night who comes regularly but not frequently to Gita. And he's involved in very high level finance and venture capital and that kind of stuff. And his intention after a decade plus, I think 10 or 15 years, founding this company and running it, high integrity. He sold it to a larger company and he was going to walk away with tens of millions of dollars. I think it was something like $75 million or something like that. And his intention was, now I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing sadhana. Well, it didn't work out that way. Come to find out, the people to whom he sold his business had some ethics problems. And he has felt a duty to his clients in his company not to let them be cheated. So it's been like 2 years in trying to smith this stuff out to protect his investors. He doesn't get to walk away and do sadhana yet, although it's pretty intense sadhana what he's doing right now. But that's karma, you know. He didn't know he was walking into this. You never know. You never know. Antithetically, Wendy, when COVID started, did you have any idea that you were going to get out of the restaurant business?
No. No,
Yeah, it wasn't your idea at all.
no,
And what happened?
I did.
Yeah. Proud of you. Proud of you.
So now I get to spend a lot of time doing sadhana.
Yeah.
Never expected that.
Yeah. Next verse. What do I watch again?
Ashramanashramam dhyanam chittasvi kritavarjanam vikalpam mama vikshaitai evamevaham. A particular stage of life or negation of it, meditation, control of mental functions, mind, recognizing these as cause of distractions in me. Thus do I indeed abide in myself.
So culturally, there are the various stations of life that a person goes through. Their brahmacharya, their student life, and then they mature and become grahasta, householder. And then when their kids are grown, you turn over the compound and the business to them, and you become vanaprastha, semi-retirement. Then finally, at the end, you take sannyas. Those are the classic 4 stations of life. And what Ashtavakra is saying, or Janaka, one of them, you know, all that goes out the window. None of it matters. I like to say, look at the body, mind, intellect like an AI robot. It's got its own internal program. You don't have to think to make your hair grow or your heart beat. You're going to do what you're going to do at the level of the body. And very little of it has anything to do with happiness. So the person of steady wisdom just kind of watches the movie. Well, what'll I do? Will I just sit around and contemplate my navel? No. Even maintenance of the body is not possible without action. Unless you're a trust fund kid, you're probably going to have to work in some way. If you need some guideline, you will be happiest if you live a life of service. And few people believe me when I say that. They hear the words, but inside they go, what do you mean? I'm happy when I'm getting what I want. I'm happy when my needs and desires are being met. It's all about my stuff. All I can tell you is that's a painful position of the mind. So many of the Indian traditions will have a guru give someone a name. It'll be something Das. Ram Das, Krishna Das, Shiva Das. Anybody know anybody else who's got one of those kind of names? What's Das mean?
Servant.
Yeah. Yeah. Very important, deep spiritual principle behind that. Swamiji just banged on this: serve the society. Not only is it for the benefit of the world, but in the end, you'll be happiest. There's some Christian author who wrote a book, The Purpose-Driven Life. Same idea. All right, next verse.
Karmanushtanamagyanad Taivo Paramamastatha Buddhva Samyag Idam Tattvam Evamevahamathitah. Abstention from action is as much the outcome of ignorance as the undertaking of action. Knowing this truth fully well, thus do I indeed abide in myself.
Yes. So if I think I'm going to avoid karma by avoiding action, that's as much ignorance. And I don't see it as much now as back in my old hippy dippy days. Everybody was going to drop out. Stephen, are you old enough to remember that?
Yeah. I did actually. I only remember it. Walk, I love that.
Me too.
Okay.
Me too.
That's why I'm sitting here now, otherwise I would be dead.
Yeah. But I think it's the Jains who, they want very, very hard not to injure or harm anybody. The idea that somehow I can reduce karma, that's a noble notion. But if you have a misunderstanding, I'm just going to sit and do nothing because I don't want to do something that's going to create more karma. That's a complete misunderstanding of the deep tradition. The dharma of the body is karma. The only body that doesn't have karma is a corpse. karma work in and of itself is not problematic. It's ego prompted desire. What is ego prompted desire? This deeply rooted belief that as the result of my action, then I'll be happy. Ego prompted action is the product of ignorance. Restraining from action because I'm afraid of consequences is also ignorance. Do your duty. Do your duty. That's it. I looked at my watch right at 9 o'clock.
You're off the hook.
Yeah. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om.